What's going on, everybody? This is the first video in a series of Mastery videos that'll be updating for the year 2020 and beyond. The Mastery system is one of the most important for players to familiarize themselves with because it's one of the few areas of the game that players actually have control over. Think about it. You open up a crystal, and you're hoping to get a good champion to aid you in your progression, but as soon as you tap that crystal to spin it out or pop it open, there's nothing you can do to increase the odds of getting a better champion, no matter what those clickbait titles will tell you, alright? It's out of your control, so don't think about it. Instead, think about masteries. Every single mastery that we place a point into, it elevates the power level of all of our champions. This is something that we actually have control over. So I highly recommend paying attention in these videos, and also I recommend investing all of your units early on into unlocking these masteries rather than spinning out a crystal and hoping for the best, hoping that you get that one champion that's going to help you in your progression. Even if you get lucky and you do get one new champion that's going to help you, what is one champion compared to increasing the power level of all of your champions? In the long run, the masteries will take you further. So, with that said, the first part of this series is going to focus on new players, and I want to set you guys up with the ideal budget-friendly build for level 30 players all the way up to level 49 players. All right, it's gonna be a cost between 700 units and 2,300 units. And by the time you hit these levels, as long as you're saving your units and not spending them on crystals, not buying too many potions, revives, things like that, then you will have the units to unlock these masteries. And if you are not new to this game, if you are a veteran of the game, then please keep this video in mind for, if your friend downloads the game or you just know somebody new, direct them to this video to get them started. All right, let's first just show the build. This is for level 30 players. This is something that you want to work towards. All of these masteries, they're very budget friendly. You can unlock them pretty early on in the game, and they're actually pretty powerful. For the most part, as you get more towards the right side of the screen, that's when you start unlocking some of the truly powerful masteries. But that doesn't mean the left side of the screen has weak masteries. Some of these masteries are quite powerful as well. So this is a great way to kind of jumpstart your progression. We're also going to be using a tool that is not in-game. It's a website called Aunt May. And this website, I'll have a link to it in the description of the video. This website is incredible. As you look at the different masteries, maybe you're not sure how many points you have. Before you start placing points in game, you kind of want to plan things ahead of time, or you want to see how much, how expensive certain masteries are, and you could use this as a way to do that. So, you could put a point in vitality, you could put a point in greater vitality, and then you're thinking, oh, I want salve because it heals. It heals my champion. That sounds pretty good, and you could see the cost to unlock it right here. And if there was a cost for the other ranks, it would show that as well. But you can click on that, and then it will keep track at the top of the screen, showing you everything needed to unlock these masteries. So this is an amazing resource. I'm going to reset this right now, but this is an amazing resource for every player to take advantage of. And before we continue, I should mention that when you unlock a mastery like Salve, for example, here, once you unlock it using Stony Mastery cores or whatever type of core it's requiring to unlock the mastery, you only have to unlock it that initial time. If you have to reset your masteries for whatever reason and you want to put points back into the masteries, you only have to pay whatever cost is shown here, which you could tell it's pretty insignificant compared to the cost of buying these cores, which can get pretty pricey. There are some masteries, however, that in addition to unlocking the first level, the first rank, you'll have to unlock each of the ranks. But again, once you have the rank unlocked, it is unlocked forever, and you only have to pay the small fee to put points into the mastery itself. And how you get these cores, we'll cover that very quickly as well. The easiest way is by going over to the store and selecting the mastery tab at the top, and you can see you have all the different core types to buy, and the class core type will actually rotate. And so yeah, if the core type that you're after is not there, it will pop up eventually. Just check back each day. Alright, there's also the Black ISO market, which you have to have the Summoner Sigil, which costs money. I don't actually have the Summoner Sigil, but it offers some discounted items here, including some of the Mastery items. The Black ISO market, it does vary based on your progression in the game, so your store might not necessarily look like my store. But it is something to check if you're interested in paying some money. Speaking of money, Kabam does also offer some discounted Mastery cores just in exchange for money from time to time. You know, spend 20 bucks, get an assortment of Mastery cores. That can be a pretty cheap way to unlock the Masteries if you don't mind spending a bit. And then you also have these quests that are classic or variant difficulty, and on the classic difficulty you can earn Sony Mastery cores here as well. The classic difficulty is not that hard, but right when you download the game it might be a little bit too difficult for you. But if you're in that kind of intermediate area of the game, then this quest probably won't be too difficult for you to do, and you can get some cores that way as well. And then from time to time there's some special events, but for the most part you are going to have to just pay full price in the Mastery tab here, and the prices that I'm going to be talking about, it does go by this store right here. So let's go back to the website AntMay, and let's talk about the order to put these Masteries in. We're going to go through the beginner Mastery build first before we get to the advanced one, of course. And starting out in the proficiency tree with Wisdom. This is the first Mastery I recommend everybody getting. It does not have any unlock fee to it, and you gain some bonus experience. Not only do you gain bonus experience from defeating opponents, you know, winning those fights, but even just walking over blank nodes in this game, it gives you a very small amount of experience, and you get bonus from Wisdom by walking over those blank nodes. So if you just look into a quest, a fresh quest, they haven't explored anything yet, and you just count all the different nodes that you have to walk across, you realize that you actually gain a pretty significant amount of experience with the Wisdom Mastery. And the more experience you gain, the faster you level up. The more levels you gain, the more Mastery points you have to work with in total. So it's almost like a free Mastery in a way, because you're placing those points, but you earn additional points by having it. So it's pretty good like that. Eventually you'll get rid of this Mastery, but that's not until way later on into the game when you're like level 50 plus. Moving on to Parry. There are actually two Masteries in this game that work different from others. Parry and Dexterity. We're actually going to pop back in-game for this one. Just so you can see, in-game, it looks a little different than it does on AntMay. Those Masteries have circles around them, with Parry down here and Dexterity. So Parry, basically when you land a well-timed block, meaning the opponent dashes at you and you block right as they would make contact with you, you actually stun the opponent. You take a reduced amount of damage and you stun the opponent, allowing you to attack them all you want while they're stunned, and is the main method for players to get attacks on the opponent without really risking, you know, if you guys dash at one another. Technically, there's a way to intercept the opponent, it's called in this game, and get an attack in that way. But that's much more difficult than getting your attacks in after a parry. So parrying is absolutely essential. I recommend watching the video How to Parry Like a Ninja on the Dork Lessons channel. I'll leave a link to that down below in the description and in the comments. If you can master parrying, then you can do pretty much anything in this game. It'll be a little bit difficult to pick up at first, but eventually get the hang of it. And yeah, like I said, it's pretty essential. Definitely check out that video. The second Mastery that has, it kind of gives you an additional ability in this game rather than just a passive effect by increasing your attack or health or something along those lines, is the Dexterity Mastery. Dexterity allows you to dodge attacks while dashing backwards. So think about Iron Man and he shoots that energy beam out at you. If you dash back at the right time, that energy beam will miss you. Not only will you not take any damage, but if you dash back and you know, avoid that energy beam, then you could dash forward and attack the opponent that way, and you'll you'll get an easy opening on the opponent too. So both of these masteries are basically essential for all levels of the game. And the sooner you pick them up, the sooner you start playing around with them and get used to them, get comfortable with the idea behind them, the better off you will be. So that's kind of the name of the game, is to get those masteries as early as possible after getting the Wisdom Mastery. So let's pop back over to Aunt May now. And in order to even get the Dexterity Mastery, you have to have 1 point into Limber. Limber is a mastery that just reduces the duration in which you are stunned, which is a great mastery to have. We're going to come back to this mastery more in the advanced build, or I should say intermediate build. But for right now, just know that it does reduce the duration in which you are stunned, which is great. And then we're finally able to put our point into Dexterity. Now here's the problem with Dexterity. This is the first mastery that actually has a cost to it, where you have to have these Stony Mastery cores. You have to have 2 of them, which is, if you're paying full price, 270 units. Now it's not that many units, and hopefully you have enough to unlock this mastery, but if not, then you will have to save up some units to get the cores to unlock it. Speaking of masteries to unlock, at this point it doesn't really matter too much the order in which you pick up masteries, but there are 2 other masteries here that have an unlock cost to them. One is Stupefy, which costs 1 Stony Mastery core, so pretty cheap. And then the other is in the defensive tree, which is Salve, which has a cost of 2 Stony Mastery cores. So I recommend, you know, from here, you don't necessarily have to follow an exact order, but when it comes to unlocking these masteries, I recommend going in this order. Dexterity first, then Stupefy, then Salve. It's just kind of the order of importance that you would want to unlock these masteries. If you don't have the units to buy the Stony cores to unlock these masteries, then just put the points elsewhere for the time being. Put the points in Vitality, Greater Vitality. This way, when you do have the units to unlock these masteries, you'll be set up for it already. Again, the order doesn't matter a ton, but let's imagine a perfect scenario where you have the units to unlock everything. This is the order that I would go with. So I'd put the 1 point in Dexterity. I would actually max out Stupefy, and then I would move on to the defensive tree. I'd put the 1 point in Vitality, 1 point in Greater Vitality. These masteries just increase your champion's health by a small amount. Then I would max out Salve, which gives your champions some health over time, just automatically at the start of each fight, which is a fantastic mastery to have. And then we have the block proficiency mastery here, which increases the block proficiency of your champions by a pretty significant amount, which all this means is that you take less damage while you're blocking, which is great. You want to be taking less damage, right? So that's a great mastery to have. Then I would come up here to the offensive tree, put a point in Strength and Greater Strength. With both of these masteries just increase your champion's attack by a small amount. And then I would max out Courage. Now, Courage is incredibly strong for not having any unlocking fee to it at all. It increases your champion's attack by 20%, but it only increases your champion's attack while they're below 50% health. That's kind of the stipulation there. But think about it. If you're above 50% health, you're cruising along through a quest. You're probably fine without that additional attack anyway, right? It's when you're below 50% health that you're kind of thinking like, oh man, am I going to make it through this fight? I really wish I was a bit stronger. I wish my attack was stronger so that I don't need to hit the opponent as many times to take them down, right? So that's when this attack matters the most. That's why Courage is so strong. And the fact that it's 20% attack for only 3 points is incredible. Compare that to something like Greater Strength here, which you can put 9 points in this mastery in total and only get 8% attack. What? 8% attack for 9 points? No, this mastery is not very good at all. The Courage mastery is far superior, so you know, don't put any more than 1 point into Greater Strength. Okay, then At this point, you'd be level 28, or you would need to be level 28 to have enough points to put all the masteries in here. And to get that up to level 30, to complete the kind of initial build, I recommend maxing out the parry mastery. And yeah, this will cost you about 700 units in total, since the parry mastery was just changed and no longer has this cost associated with it, just waiting for the site to be updated. It literally was just changed in-game like a day ago, so by the time you visit this website, this will likely already be changed. But you only need 5 actually in total if we take away those 3, so 5 Stony Mastery cores. Very inexpensive. This is a great base build to start out with. Let's talk about a more intermediate build. What if you're beyond level 30? You have some extra units. Where would you go from here? Well, let's think a little bit. So let's start out with utility. I want to first talk about some masteries that will not cost any additional units, or don't cost any additional cores at least. And let's start with Limber. So Limber, the first point, it reduces the stun duration on yourself by 8%, which is not a lot. You don't really notice it. But if you max this mastery out, you're reducing the stun duration on yourself by 48%. That's cutting the stun duration practically in half. You absolutely notice having Limber. It will save your life. This is an incredible mastery to max out, especially considering there is no unlock fee to it. You just have to pay the very small amount of units to put the points in the mastery, but other than that, it is totally free and awesome. So I recommend maxing out Limber. No matter what stage of the game you're at, is a great mastery to have. All right, then Dexterity. Here's where we get slightly controversial. If you're a new player, don't even sweat it. Just put 3 points in it. But if you're watching other YouTube videos, even if you watch my live streams and you ask me to go to my mastery build, because my mastery build actually changes pretty frequently. I like to play around with different masteries from time to time. You'll notice that for the most part, I only have 1 point in this mastery. Most players only have 1 point in this mastery. But the thing is, it's free, okay? If you already unlocked the first point, the second and third points, they're free. So until you can unlock some of these even more powerful masteries, this is a great place to sink your points. The Dexterity mastery, the reason why most players only have 1 point is because 1 point, 3 point, it doesn't matter. You still evade the opponent's attacks by timing your dash at the right time. The benefit from having additional points beyond the first is you also gain a buff that will increase your chance to critically hit the opponent on your next attack. And the more points you have, the bigger of a buff that you have. It increases your chance that much more to land a critical hit in your next attack. And it's not just your next attack, it also has a small duration to it. So if you have 3 points, it's your next 2 attacks. So it's actually not bad. It's a great value pickup having Dexterity maxed out. Again, as we get to some of the more advanced kind of expert endgame type builds, may not always recommend maxing out Dexterity, but for a budget intermediate build, highly recommended. Okay, so that'll be it for utility for now. As far as defense goes, this is actually fine for now as well. I'll talk about some of these in just a moment. And then from there, I would go to offense, actually. And I would put 1 point into Pierce. This just allows you to ignore some armor from the opponent on critical hits. It's not really that good of a mastery. It's more of a prerequisite mastery to unlock some of the others after it. It does have an unlock fee of 2 Stony Mastery cores, unfortunately. So you will have to get the cores to unlock that. But once you unlock that, you unlock the crit masteries. So the top masteries are Lesser Precision and Precision, which increase the crit rating of your champions. And crit rating is essentially the crit chance. It increases the chance that you will critically hit the opponent. And critical hits, they just deal an increased amount of damage. So it increases that chance to land a critical hit. And then the bottom 2 here are Lesser Cruelty and Cruelty. And these increase the crit damage rating, which when you do land a critical hit, this will increase the amount of bonus damage that you gain on that critical hit. We're going to start with the Precision Mastery, which is much more important than the Cruelty one, for a couple of reasons. And actually, I'm only going to mention one of the reasons for now, because it gets slightly complicated. As a newer player, you don't necessarily need to know why all the time. You just need to know that Precision is better. And one of the reasons why Precision is better is because certain abilities only happen when you land a critical hit. Like a champion like Venom, for example, if you land a critical hit on the opponent, then you will also apply a bleed to the opponent. So that increases your damage more than if you were just to pick up something like Cruelty. So you want Precision. There's a bunch of abilities in this game that work off of critical hits. So yeah, having Precision maxed out is something that nearly every player for every build has in the game. There's some exceptions, but for now, let's just leave it at that. Precision is an incredible pickup. Then, if you still have some extra units to spare, then I do recommend picking up Cruelty. Cruelty is still a great mastery to max out, but both Precision and Cruelty, they each cost 5 of these Stony Mastery cores to unlock, so it gets pretty pricey. But if you have both of those maxed out, then here is where I would say is the end of kind of the intermediate build. This is my recommended intermediate build, at least. This is you need 44 mastery points, which means you are either level 49, or there is an additional way to gain points in game through the story quest. At this point, you may have started to pick up some of these. You may not have as well, so don't sweat it if you're not here yet, because it does get kind of difficult. But if you look at Act 4, we're looking at the Act 4 rewards right now. For each chapter, if you 100% clear the chapter, then you get 1 additional mastery point. Chapter 4 is the only quest in the game like this. You only get mastery points from leveling up or from completing the chapters in Act 4. All 4 chapters in Act 4 will give you a mastery point. So, assuming you have not done that yet, then you would have to be level 49 actually to have 44 mastery points. So yeah, this is what that build would look like. Now, just to quickly go over some of the masteries that we have not talked in this build. First off, anything, the class masteries, they're all very expensive, and most of them are not worth it. Mystic Dispersion is the one exception. That this mastery is incredible. However, it's very expensive, so we're not covering that in this more budget-friendly beginner or intermediate guide. And then anything to the right of the class mastery cores. These are the more end-game focused masteries that are very powerful, but they're also very expensive. And sometimes they even come with kind of downsides to them, like the Suicide Masteries. These are the Suicide Masteries, Liquid Courage and Double Edge. You may have heard that term before. We'll cover that in a future video, but we're leaving out all of those masteries because of how expensive they are. So let's go through the left half of each of these trees here and figure out why we're not putting points in these masteries. So Extended Fury and Enhanced Fury, they're just not very powerful. They increase the duration and potency of Fury buffs, but they're pretty weak, so I don't recommend putting points in them. Recovery is actually a very powerful mastery, and I recommend unlocking it when you have an opportunity to, but it costs 6 Stony Mastery cores, which is about 800 units in itself. And you know, all of the masteries that are in this build currently, it's only about 2,300 units total. So adding an additional 800 units on top of that, I just feel like is a little too expensive for someone starting out. Don't worry about it for now, but eventually you absolutely want the recovery mastery. So it's something good to work towards, just kind of expensive. Energy resistance and physical resistance, they're not bad masteries, but I just felt like there was better, you know, your points are better used elsewhere. I actually run physical resistance in my normal everyday build, but I'll cover that more as we get to the end game focus builds. So for now, just don't worry about it. Perfect block allows you to have a small chance at reducing damage down to 0 upon blocking, and this is actually pretty powerful. It's only 1% per rank, so you know it's not a bad mastery. It doesn't cost anything. There's no unlock fee to it, so if you have some extra points, it's not a bad place to put some mastery points into. But because we're keeping this to a little bit of a lower level, we don't have as many mastery points, and therefore for the purposes of this guide, I didn't put anything in there, but it's not a bad mastery if you have some extra points, if you're a little bit higher level. Stand Your Ground is kind of similar. It's not necessarily a bad mastery, but it's in some ways an unnecessary mastery. If you're playing really well, you'll never need Stand Your Ground. The way this mastery works is while you're blocking, if the opponent uses a heavy attack to break your block, you have a chance to resist that. So you won't get knocked over, right? And you'll be able to attack the opponent. But the only time the opponent really throws a heavy attack is I mean, let me put it this way. The further you get in this game, the more control you have over when the opponent throws a heavy. The opponent will only ever throw a heavy when you're like holding block, pretty much. And while you're holding block, you kind of expect the opponent to throw a heavy attack. So if your finger is ready to dash back, you're just waiting for the opponent to start charging up their heavy attack, you can dash back out of the way. Now, sometimes those heavy attacks, they come faster than our reflexes, they're faster than we can react to them. And that's kind of what makes Stand Your Ground a decent mastery to pick up. There is a small cost to it though, and because it is something that's avoidable, I did leave it out of this guide, but it's not a worthless mastery by any means, but I typically don't run it, and I typically don't recommend other people run it either. But if you find yourself getting hit by a lot of heavy attacks, you know, picking up this mastery can help you out. Okay, moving on to the proficiencies. This other experience mastery has a unit cost to it, and eventually you're going to hit the experience cap anyway, so I just don't recommend picking it up, only because it has that cost to it. If it was free, then hey, it wouldn't be that bad, but it's not free. It's also a lot of points. It's only you know, 4% per point. It's not that much. If it was free, okay, but otherwise no. Pittance, this affects your gold gains, and it's pathetic. Earn +1 gold with all gold rewards. Come on. Don't worry about the gold masteries. They're too weak. And then finally the Petrify and Pacify masteries, which Petrify reduces the power and healing that the opponent is gaining while they're stunned, and Pacify reduces the abilities for reduces the chance for their abilities to activate while the opponent's stunned. Sometimes these abilities are nice to have, but you know, in a lot of ways, because they only work when the opponent is stunned, a lot of times you can't even take advantage of these masteries, and they're kind of wasted points. Again, as we get to some more of the advanced areas of the game, sometimes these masteries can be great to have, but early on, you're just not stunning the opponent enough to take advantage of them, and I don't recommend putting points in them. They're not that expensive, you know, 1 Stony Mastery Core for Petrify, 1 for Pacify as well, but it's just, we don't have unlimited points, so we gotta make cuts somewhere. And yeah, this is the build where I would, this is pretty much what I recommend. Again, you want to start out with this as your mastery build. This is the more beginner focus build, and I'll put a link to this in the description, and you eventually want to make your way towards the intermediate build that I have in place here. You're welcome to make some adjustments, but for the most part I recommend sticking pretty close to what I have laid out here. Once we get to the more end game focus build, that's when you're able to be more flexible, and you're going to see a lot more variation in builds, but this for now is a great foundation. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. I'll have links to everything in the description, including the how to parry like a ninja video, so that you can start parrying like a ninja, of course. Links to the beginner and intermediate mastery build that I laid out here, as well as a link to the playlist of updated mastery videos that will be coming out in the following days. That's going to do it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.